So why are we here? We're here. This is a product of a partnership called the Initiative for Indigenous Futures. This is a partnership that was we just got a grant from SSHRC, the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council, to conduct a 7-year-long sort of project, sort of investigating what we think of as the Indigenous future imaginary, or just the future imaginary. And the sort of the genesis comes out of a sort of a 10-year-long trajectory of projects that we've been doing under the Aboriginal territories and Aboriginal territories in cyberspace, AbTech research network, that have sort of focused on investigating how how Native people in our communities are using digital media to tell our stories. And part of what happened over the course of that time is we found ourselves thinking more and more about the future, right? And sort of future in science fiction terms. We're big science fiction fans. We were working with youth who are big science fiction fans, and part of what we noticed is that in the workshops that we were doing with youth on video game design in particular, and Aboriginal storytelling, right, is that in our communities we spend a lot of time talking about the past, as we should, right? And most of the time that's left over is dealing with some very serious challenges in the present. But what we don't do is we don't spend a lot of time dreaming of the future, right? We talk about the 7th generation, and I think we try to honor the 7th generation to come. But what we didn't see very much of was actually sort of concrete illustrations of what we want that life for our descendants to be. And that's whether the 7th generation, the 10th generation, or the 20th generation. So really science fiction territory. And this was also something that came out in conversations with the youth that we were working with, is that their future imaginary is the future imaginary of the settler culture, right? It's the future imaginary of Western culture, because we're saturated with that in movies and films and literature. That's where most of my future imaginary comes from. And so one of the things we started thinking about is like, what could we do to both promote the presence of Native people in the wider culture's future imaginary, because that's another issue, is in those Western future imaginaries, very rarely Indigenous people, right? So what can we do to get more Indigenous people in those futures? But what can we do to also develop ideas and illustrations of the futures that we want? And then how can we sort of build a foundation so that we are in a position to help build that future, right? Concretely make that future come to pass. And so out of that came the Initiative for Indigenous Futures. And so that's a research network of 3 educational institutions, 5 community organizations, 1 industrial partner, 5 or 6 co-investigators who are academics, artists, community activists, technology developers, game makers, etc., we're all very much interested in populating that Indigenous future imaginary and doing work in that direction. So what we're going to do to sort of start off today is we're going to talk a little bit more detail about what IIF Initiative for Indigenous Futures is going to be doing over the next 7 years, so that you're all aware of that. And we're always looking for playmates, right? We're always looking for people who want to come in and collaborate with us and do interesting things and reach communities that we're not part of, or we're not working with, etc. Begin to get the word out there. And then we have 4 speakers that we invited to come today and talk about the future imaginary, talk about their take on that idea and what they think it might be interesting about that. And then at the end of the day, we'll have a roundtable conversation for half an hour, 45 minutes, that gives an opportunity for everybody to sort of chime into the conversation and see where it's going. It's a super exciting time. We've spent a lot of work getting to this point, but it's really amazing to think that we have at least 7 years to sort of flesh this out, and we're super excited to see what other people have to say and what other people propose might be done to help us sort of grapple with this issue in a very sort of interesting and constructive and fun way. So with that, so this is kind of the mission statement for the initiative. We're exploring the cultural, conceptual, creative, and technical dimensions of the Indigenous future imaginary. while encouraging Aboriginal people to craft a future of their choosing. Okay. So that's the heart of the matter, and then what we're doing concretely is sort of 4 big project areas. One are the symposia. I realize I said first annual, but if we can make it happen every year, we'll do it. It might be biannual or sort of, go in an episodically, but it will be something we're doing on a continuous basis over the next 7 years. And it's exactly what we're doing right now, right? And so it provides a forum for us to talk about these ideas all together, for us to present the work that we're doing within the initiative, have other people come and talk about the work they're doing that might be similar to that in their communities. The ones in the future will be, most likely will be public, right? We did this first one as an invite only because it's we're sort of like still have training wheels on as a partnership, right? We're still sort of just getting formed up. We had our first annual meeting just this morning. So we thought, let's start with something small where we can probably manage it without killing ourselves, which we haven't done so far. But the idea is that, this will become a public sort of an event where we can invite everybody in who wants to be part of this conversation with us. And we think there's lots more people out there who have something interesting to say about this. So you'll be hearing more about these as we go off into the future.